Well guys, this series has been very fun and I hope everyone has enjoyed, but I guess we're going to go ahead and just let this be a two-part mini-series and let that be it and we won't carry on any Oh, okay. Well, alrighty then, I suppose everyone has spoken. Let us continue our journey as a logging empire. So the first things first, with today's episode, well first of all I want to thank you guys ever so much for all your support, but first things first, in the actual logging empire, we're going to begin moving some traps as we are going to expand this empire into a blossoming city of timber. Now everyone has left some wonderful comments about, hey Rat Knight, instead of just selling timber, why don't you make some shit with the timber, dude, and try selling that, it's worth a lot more money. And to that, my friends, I say, that is a wonderfully splendid idea, and that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be making weapons, we're going to make armor, we're going to make art, we're going to make everything possible to sell. And in doing so, we are going to be making a lot more money as well, and we'll need less and less animals to carry everything, as timber is extremely heavy, and armor, art, all that junk, though heavy, not near as heavy as these massive logs. So what we're doing here today, right now, is building a massive production/warehouse area. That way we'll have all our timber in here to use, and all the shit to make it, basically. To celebrate the construction of this new warehouse, as well as these new opportunities that we would be taking on, Birch decided to throw a bit of a soiree in the camp mess hall. And just after everyone was done partying their little asses off, we began working on some actual products. Our very first product was a short bow. I know, it's nothing too fancy, but you have to start somewhere. And just as well, we could think of no one better than Birch himself to make our very first wooden art sculpture. Sure, it looked like dog shit, but it was more of a sentimental thing, and I guess we could still sell it. As mentioned, we started very simple with the products that we were producing. Short bows, some art, some clubs, things like that. Just the bare bone basics to get us started. But things weren't all parties and making these nice clubs and short bows. We were getting raided on this cold winter night. So all of our loggers gathered around to the barricades and started loading their rifles and pistols. These filthy tribal raiders were definitely after our high-quality wooden products, no doubt in my mind. We were outnumbered though, and they began chasing us so bad 2 of us fell and the others had to run through the town to try and get away from them as they shot at them. The battle carried on through town until we slaughtered enough of the fools that the others decided to run. Those of them that were caught, though, were enslaved. And by those of them, I mean one Thromboian tribal person that we actually enslaved, whose name I can only pronounce inside my head. But damn was she good at crafting. She would be our #1 smither for all of our wooden products. And I hear you say to yourself, Rat Knight, you disgusting son of a bitch, you're enslaving Thromboian people to make your products, and to which I say, yeah, it's a pretty fair point. But life isn't perfect, people. Birch isn't here to make friends, he's here to make money. And speaking of money, we have Happy Oak taking out our very first shipment of clubs, short bows, a little bit of art, pilas, and some recurve bows off to the Brits. What do the Brits want with all these wooden products when they have this superior gun technology and whatnot? Well, I don't really know, to be honest. I just cut down the trees, I make the stuff, and I sell the shit. I don't really care as long as they put a little bit of silver in my pocket. And here's something a little controversial. I am selling off our baby yaks and bison and things like that. Yeah, I know, it's not wood, it's not timber, I get it, okay? But I feel like that is something that loggers would do if they no longer need those animals. And I get that the counter-argument to that is probably, well, Rat Knight, why can't you just eat them? Well, that's a lot of damn babies to eat, okay? It's a little bit too much food, and we really don't need that. We'd rather make money. Speaking of money as well, something to address is most of the settlements don't buy furniture like chairs and things like that, thus why we're making weapons and armor and things like that. Maybe in the future we could look into adjusting that so we can force them to buy that kind of stuff, but as of right now we're just sticking with weapons and armor. A little bit later, the British came to us with a little bit of an offer. They had a high-value prisoner who was sick that we would have to take care of for 15 days. Now, in exchange for doing so, they would actually give us a colonist who would come here and work in our logging city. Thus, we accepted. Now, with such a growing population of loggers and slaves, we decided to build a much larger section onto our mess hall. That way, everyone has enough room to eat. Because God forbid any of these loggers and slaves that have had their arms and legs shot off, they've lost fingers and eyes, and they've slept out in the snow next to fallen trees and all this crazy badass shit, go 5 seconds without sitting at a table to eat their meal because they will go batshit insane. But that's how it goes, I suppose. I mean, it is a pretty sweet table. I'd be pissed if I couldn't sit there and eat too, I guess. Anyhow, though, Kibby ended up making our very first grand wooden sculpture, and it looks horrible. It's actually awful quality, so it was basically a huge waste of time, but that's alright. We'll make a few pennies off of it, I suppose. We also ended up having a warg self-tame, which was nice. I ended up naming it Fester. The name, of course, is from the show Wednesday, as well as the Addams Family with Uncle Fester. We also made the warg a beautiful buffalo wool scarf to wear around his neck. In the meantime, though, our Thrumboian slave thought it'd be a great time to have an open rebellion against all of our loggers. Kibby thought that this was a horrible idea and thus busted through the door of the warehouse, dual-wielding rifles, and just started blasting at her. And this shit got really cool really fast. The slave runs into the warehouse, runs to the nearest flintlock pistol, and then takes cover, and a shootout begins in the warehouse between her and Kibby. Hearing all the commotion going down in the warehouse, and by that I mean all the bullets whizzing around, Cedar decides to bust through as well and start firing his pistol at the slave. But given how inaccurate the weapons are, Cedar and Kibby decide to rush her with their fist and just beat the shit out of her, and they finally stop her. Sometime later, good old sick-ass prisoner Roy is finally ready to depart, so we send him back home to the British, and we end up getting our colonist that was promised to us. His name was Alvarado, and he was going to be the logging city's new cook. He was no stranger behind a stove, you could say. He also had an ugly mohawk, so we sent him to the warehouse to get some gear, that way we could cover that up. Though he had a disgusting mohawk, he also had some pretty sweet-ass mutton chops, so, we let it slide. And I'm glad we did, because we were now being raided by scurvy pirates, and we would need Alvarado's help. These scurvy pirates actually had a very interesting person along with them named Carol, who claimed to be Birch's daughter. I know, scandalous. Could this be true? I'm not sure, but she's coming to kill us. All the pirates began scampering towards us on foot with their blunderbusses and whatnot. As we were all mounted on yak and bison, we began firing upon them. Though the pirates sorely outnumbered us, we still had the upper hand, as many of our loggers were on yak back and or bison back, thus they were much faster than the pirates. After killing many of the pirates, we began trying to chase down Carol to get to the whole bottom of her being Birch's daughter thing. Unfortunately, though, she was still faster than us, as she was much farther away, and she got away before we could catch her. And by catch her, I mean put a bullet in her spine and then carry her back, but I digress. We also took some of the pirates captive. One we enslaved, and the other we decided to recruit and let him be our researcher. Now, I know it seems like we've been doing a whole lot of fighting and not a lot of logging and other things, but in the background, while all this has been going on, we've been making a lot of weapons and art and things like that, so it is time for another trade caravan. Now, this trade caravan, as many others, would be going to our good friends, the British. Now, you're probably wondering, why do I keep trading with the British? Well, honestly, we're just willing to trade with whoever has money, so whenever the British don't have their money restocked, we send it out to the French, the Thrumboian tribes, the Prussians, but right now the British are the closest to us, and they got that moolah. Back at home, though, we had a mega sloth self-tame, and we named him Knot. Like a knot in wood. Sometime later, the caravan arrived back home, and Happy Oak had about 4,000 silver that he got from our products. Now, I know that's not a lot, but as mentioned, we're starting with some of the smaller products, and we're about to begin making our way into the better ones like wooden armor and things like that. But given the fact that we have more and more riches coming into the city, and we continue making more and more high quality products that are worth a lot of money, it's time that we focus on some defenses. We began building some walls around the city to try and protect ourselves. And I don't want anyone to get worried and think, oh, he's going to do a kill box or something like that. I'm not. I'm going to make some half walls, if that makes sense. So we'll have some scattered walls here and there to kind of channel the enemies in towards our barricades and some of our traps. I'm not going to make a kill box or anything, but just an area where they have to come towards our colonists instead of being able to flank them from behind or from the sides. Because even with the walls we're currently building, they could still come from the south through the city and flank us, and the only defenses we have down south are traps. We had our colonists under researching different types of armors, animal armors, weapons, and things like that we could build out of wood and sell to the other colonies. And I understand that we're a logging empire and that these products are being made of wood, but now that we're making weapons and wood-plated helmets and armor and animal armor and things like that we plan on getting into, we're kind of a weapons dealer. But I suppose as long as the weapons and armor are made of our high-quality Stardust Logging Company timber, it still fits the bill. Now, given the fact that we keep getting raided by these scurvy pirates with some decent quality technology that they keep attacking us with, I decided to research cannons and begin placing some pivot cannons at certain sections of the city to protect us. It's kind of like a mortar, except the shells are just steel and it can fire pretty close to itself. Sometime later, I noticed that our colonist Alvarado had a little bit of a forbidden love situation going on with our slave Ingy. For God's sake, man, what are you doing? You know what? I don't give a shit as long as you're cutting trees and making things out of them. Speaking of our pirate slaves, it looks like their scurvy pirate brethren have come to try and sack us, take our timber, and save their little buddies, if there's time, I suppose. Unfortunately for them, though, our pivot guns had other things to say about that. We were luckily able to mutilate quite a few of the pirates with our pivot guns as the cannonballs rolled through their legs like butter, but they still outnumbered us quite a bit given that there were just so many of them, I suppose, so we ended up having to make a strategic retreat back into the city as we normally do. But a little while later, after everyone was healed up from the battle, we had our wood workshop in full force. We were pumping out recurve bows, maces, wood plate armor, and we had stacks upon stacks of small wooden sculptures. Unfortunately, though, our production would have to take a hiatus for a moment as we had some man-hunting rhinoceros enter the area. The animals were very angry and very horny, get it because they have a horn, but Birch was even angrier and very horny as well. He even went at them with his own trusty axe, trying to kill many of them. He and a few of our other loggers were severely injured during the battle from the rhinoceros, but luckily they would survive. We shoved some of this random plant that we found in the wilderness into their festering wounds, and that seemed to do the trick. Sometime later, after we had some big-ticket items like the high-valued wood-plated helmets and armor, as well as many small sculptures, and we were just bursting at the seams with small sculptures, we decided to load them all up into a caravan, though, and send Happy Oak out with them to trade. This would be the highest valued trade caravan yet, and realistically, we could fill this entire warehouse full of armors and whatnot, and make much more money, which we do plan to do. It did take a little while for this trade caravan though, as we went to the British and then also went to the French as the British did not have enough money to accommodate us. With this trade caravan, we ended up making 6,113 silver. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a lot in the grand scheme of things, but keep in mind, once again, this was a fraction of the warehouse. We could fill the entire warehouse full of armors, animal armors, things like that, grand sculptures, and all of this we do intend to do to make moolah, baby. Plenty and plenty of moolah. And realistically, if you haven't noticed just yet, with the bank, we ended up having to build the bank bigger to fit more of our money. I started using pallets as well, as with pallets you can stack 4,000 silver, and with the double shelves or whatnot you can only do, I think, 2,000. So we're going to be using pallets from here on out to try and store all of our silver. But guys, that is going to do it for episode 3 of our Logging Empire series. Hope to have episode 4 out before too long. I want to thank you guys ever so much for the support on this. This series was not supposed to be this awesome series that everyone loves. It was supposed to be more of, hey, I'm going to put something out before Christmas so people have something to watch. So I am honestly so grateful for the feedback and just honestly your support with the series and with the channel. This series is the biggest one as of right now. As I talk about it, I think the first episode has 20-something thousand views. I would have to double check. It keeps going up, which is crazy to me. I am flabbergasted, honestly. It's amazing. I am just so grateful, and I'm so glad everyone seems to be enjoying this. I hope you guys enjoy the mic not sounding like dog shit this time, or maybe it does and I'm just stupid. But last time the settings were a little messed up and I was screaming from the fourth dimension, and just as well we were using some kind of goofier music. I think you guys want some more serious music with this series, so I'm trying to give you something that fits more of the era and the time period that we're in, so I hope that's a little bit better. Once again, though, thank you guys for everything, man. It's been amazing, and but thank you guys for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye, guys.